Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony, with the FCC going after indecency, you think we have anything to worry about here?
Tony Kornheiser and I don't know, but just to be sure, you better keep wearing your pasties.
Gotta keep wearing those?
Yeah.
Pants in the summertime? How's the time on that?
Just the pasties is what we're talking about. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, Bobby Knight loses his temper, Bron and Melo get snubbed, and Greg Norman wants Michelle Wie banned from the men's tour. What a dope he is. But we start with Bob Knight, who is in hot water again, this time over a verbal confrontation with the chancellor of Texas Tech University at a salad bar in Lubbock.
Salad bar?
Makes me laugh every time. Apparently, the chancellor congratulated Knight on his behavior lately, and Knight took issue with the word lately. Wilbon, this was a public shouting match, and though I have defended Knight many times before, even I find this one impossible to defend. I thought Knight could be fired. Incredibly, you don't think what he did was a big deal at all, and it pleases me to say this. Go ahead, defend your boy.
What a switcheroo we got here, huh? No, I don't think it's that big a deal. I mean, Tony, he has done stuff like the Connie Chung incident on television. He choked Neil Reed. He put an LSU fan in a garbage can in '83. He had the incident with a policeman in San Juan. Now, we've been told all day that this argument with another grown man was going to either get him 3-day suspension, 5-day suspension, 5 games. There was speculation he'd be fired. Now, just recently, Pat Knight told Andy Katz about 20 minutes ago that there's a change, and Knight isn't even going to be suspended for tonight's game. I don't think there ever should have been a question about it. He argued with another grown man, a superior, who could have argued back or fired him.
I understand that. First of all, they're at an upscale salad bar in Lubbock.
What does that mean?
Which I think it means they have a truck port there. But a guy comes over, it's your boss. He says you've done well lately, and you take him down publicly. I thought with all the litany of stuff with Knight, that this chancellor would say, that's it, you're done. Now, as recently as a half hour ago, we thought he was out, certainly for the Baylor game tonight. Now we're being told not only is he not out, he may never be out. But you think by the end of the year, you think this is it for him.
Well, if this chancellor doesn't want him, and this is not the guy who hired him, if this chancellor doesn't want Bob Knight, guess what will happen? He'll get rid of him, and Knight will go somewhere else and coach there and break Dean Smith's record.
Knight has a chance to break that record. He needs a D1 school. He has made Texas Tech very, very good in about an hour and a half.
In the top 20. He'll make another school very good.
Is this not bizarre?
Yes.
This is bizarre today.
And you don't expect this with Bob Knight involved?
It's bizarre.
Tony, the NBA announced its reserves for the upcoming All-Star game in Los Angeles. In the East, Pierce, Artest, Kidd, Kmart, Michael Redd, Jamal McGlure, and Baron Davis are the reserves.
Kmart.
In the West,
that sounds great.
Cassell, Kirilenko, Dirk, Shaq, Peja, Ray Allen, and Brad Miller were named to that team. That means, Tony, fabulous teenagers LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony are left out. The 29 NBA coaches determine the reserves. You're going to defend these selections, aren't you?
You don't even have to read my lips. Just listen to me. This is crapola. I don't care what positions these kids play. And you say to me, well, they didn't make it at their positions. They are the future of the NBA. The hype was enormous. They're better. They are selfless players.
I agree with you.
They need to be on the All-Star team because people want to see them. It is arrogance for the NBA coaches, most of whom have been fired. The others should be fired. It's arrogance for them to leave off LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony, who are legitimate draws stars.
I will take exception with only one thing you said. You said people want to see them.
Yes, they do.
If people wanted to see them that badly, Tony, they simply could have voted them onto the team as starters themselves.
They got voted very high. They don't have the recognition that these other guys who've been in the league 5 and 6 years and 8 years have, but they got voted ahead a lot of guys who are now on this team. And again, people want to see them. People think they're great.
I want to see them. I'm going to cover the game. I want to see them.
Should they be on this team?
Yes, I think they should.
So why do you defend this?
I'm not defending it. You are going crazy like it's the biggest error in the history of sports.
You know why?
It's not.
You know why? Because as big as the hype was, they're even better than the hype, and that never happens.
They are.
The Janet Jackson Nipplegate controversy continues unabated like a brush fire going through the Southwest. People keep talking about it. The FCC's investigating it. It's an A1 story in every good newspaper in the country. Wilbon, is it possible that Janet Jackson and your boy Justin Timberlake, and not the New England Patriots, are they the legacy of Super Bowl 38?
Well, the marquee is going to have to be shared, Tony. Wow, the NFL is very proud of the fact that it brings so many people in to watch its
Big Ten.
The event,
Big
right?
Ten.
And all those people, most of those people are not week-to-week football fans. They don't follow it every day. So what are they going to take away? They know Janet Jackson, all right? They may not know anybody else on the field other than Brady, but they know Janet Jackson. And yes, this Super Bowl will always be attached with, as you cleverly call it, Nipplegate.
The NFL has said now that MTV won't handle this in the future. The NFL can't skate on this, and I'll tell you why. Because everything the NFL does, it passes on all these beer commercials that equate football with beer drinking and sex.
I mean, like the Twins.
Yeah.
They pass on it, you're right.
They also have their own sex commercials. They're in partnership with Levitra. Then there's Cialis. That's about sex. MTV, we watch it. It's about what?
Sex.
It's about sex. So they can hardly say, I'm shocked that there's sex on TV.
Well, I guess they
made their bet.
They expect to just go right by the boards on this and nobody's going to look at the NFL? No. They can't be that naive.
Here's what we disagree on, though.
What?
I thought the halftime was bad. You thought it was good.
I was there.
I thought it was
bad. I like
bad.
Janet Jackson. You like the Beach Boys.
Yes.
The Super Bowl champion
They're
Patriots
only 90
were
now.
celebrated with a parade through Boston today that snaked from Copley Square to City Hall Plaza. It's the same honor that was bestowed on all those championship Celtics teams. So I would hope the good people of Boston are finally happy. But Tony, I suspect the moment the Sox report to spring training on February 20, we're going to hear more whining from anguished Bostonians than a litter of 3-week puppies. Tony, do you understand all of this?
I don't, because the Celtics won with Russell, and they won with Cowens, and they won with Bird. And the Bruins won with Orr, and now the Patriots have 2 in 3 years, and all they care about is the Sox. I think you might understand it because you got the Cubs to live with. I can't believe that Bostonians take no joy in this.
Here's where apparently Chicagoans and Bostonians sort of separate. When the Bears won in '85, and the Bears are to Chicago, I think, what Boston is to, what the Red Sox are to Boston, Chicago got some relief. And when Jordan had that run with the Bulls, Chicago got relief. But we talk with our producer all the time
Matt Kelleher, native Bostonian.
And what does he say? It doesn't count.
He's weeping.
Happy, but
he's
lugubrious.
It doesn't matter at all because he wants to know who's coming to spring training.
Yeah.
This is insane on the part of these Bostonians. I cannot understand. In New York, if somebody won, you were happy. You were just happy.
They can't be happy. They're like you.
Greg Norman apparently thought the world was waiting for him to weigh in on women playing the men's golf tour. And so now he has. Calling them, quote, girls, the great Australian sociologist has determined that they should not play against men and that the men's tour should rewrite its rules, specifically excluding women. Norman says women on the men's tour is mostly, quote, a marketing ploy. Wilbon, you got the Sharks back on this one?
In a word, no. Now, I will have his back on one thing. Michelle Wie at 14 is a girl. I got no problem with that. But, Tony.
She's a girl.
Greg Norman has his Shark label, that logo, on everything. He is a brilliant marketer. He stays right underneath Tiger Woods and Arnold Palmer, not because he wins a dime playing golf, but selling golf to the masses. So how hypocritical is it for him to suggest that it's okay for him to market, but the LPGA or certain women not to?
The good thing about this is that Tim Fincham, who is the commissioner, has not come out and endorsed what Norman has to say. Norman has I think there are 2 balls of contention here that he's wrong on. If a woman can play well enough to play with the men and you consign her to the LPGA Tour, she's going to make about 1/5 to 1/8 as much as a man in a comparable position. Plus, when you say you shouldn't get sponsor exemptions, who puts up the money to sponsor the golf tournament?
The same people who put up the money for all of Greg Norman's Shark logo stuff.
So if they want to have Michelle Wie, who, by the way, goes out there and plays even with many, if not most of the men, you got to have her. If I want to go see a tournament, I want to see Michelle Wie.
I don't mind the How can he object to the sponsors' exemptions? People get invited to that all the time. Celebrities get invited.
Because at this point in his career, he's getting in on a sponsor exemption. We're taking a break. When we come back, we'll find out the specifics of the Bob Knight situation from Jay Bilas, who just spoke with him. And later, Tom Brady is on a roll, but does he have the Joe-mentum to be president one day?
Look at that hat. I like Brady's hat. It's pretty stylish.
Pardon the interruption. Presented by Guinness Draft Stout. Drink responsibly. Brilliant.
If you're just joining us, Bob Knight is at the center of another controversy after publicly arguing with the school chancellor, again at an upscale salad bar. Jay Bilas just talked with Coach Knight. What is the latest?
Well, Tony, the latest is the suspension that was being contemplated of 5 days will not happen, that Bob Knight is not going to be suspended over the disagreement that he had at the Market Street restaurant in Lubbock with the Chancellor David Smith, and he will coach in the game tonight against Baylor at United Spirit Arena in Lubbock.
How did that happen? We've been hearing all day long he's going to go for 3 games or 5 games or 5 days. How does it happen that there's no games?
Well, there was discussion about a 5-day suspension, and even though there was no hearing or no due process or anything like that, Bob Knight was willing to accept the 5-day suspension just to get it behind him and behind the team, because he really enjoys coaching this team and has said so publicly, and really enjoys coaching these particular kids, and doesn't want anything to get in the way of a successful season that they're having. But he didn't agree with it. He didn't think it was a fair penalty. He did accept responsibility for the fact that the disagreement was in public, and responsibility for his part in that, the 50% part in that disagreement that was in public, but otherwise thought it was unfair, but was willing to accept it. But as the day wore on, the president became involved and looked into the matter and decided, along with the chancellor, that it wasn't appropriate for any suspension to take place at all. And all that will be done in this matter is a letter will be presented to Bob Knight. Now, whether that is termed a letter of reprimand, I don't know the answer to that, but that is all it will be, rather than any kind of suspension.
Wow.
And frankly, I can tell you, I think that's the right way to go, because as we talked before, the three of us, I felt that any suspension would be an over-the-top penalty for this, and that the chancellor, David Smith, was making this more personal
Jay,
than anything else.
Well, you mentioned the chancellor, and I'm wondering whether or not this chancellor, who did not hire Bob Knight, was not at the university when Bob Knight was hired, have he and Knight, have they had an incident before? Is there some bad blood there that we didn't know about previously?
I wouldn't call it bad blood necessarily, Michael, but I would say that they don't see eye to eye on things, and they don't particularly have great like for each other. But I think they can work together, and they have worked together. But there have been a couple of things. One, when Bob Knight had to discipline a player last year and dismiss a player, the chancellor stepped in and made a public statement that he would investigate the matter without, in Coach Knight's understanding, knowing all the facts of it, and later on had to back off that. And Coach Knight didn't like that. And the next thing came when the chancellor came into the locker room right before a game, and Coach Knight didn't have any time for him. And that angered, what I'm told, Chancellor Smith, and became a point of contention. Those are relatively small matters, as was the disagreement that they had at the Market Street restaurant in Lubbock. It was just something that should have been handled in a little different manner by both parties, and I think they both realize that, and we can move on.
Let me ask you this. I mean, I know that you don't think this is that big a deal, but most people, when they look at Bob Knight having a public temper tantrum, assume the worst. Could you just explain why you think this is not a big deal?
Because I don't think it was a public temper tantrum. I think it was the president saying, or the Chancellor Smith saying something to Coach Knight that he took issue with. And really what he said to him was Bob, I think you've done a good job lately. And Coach Knight responded matter-of-factly by saying, you know, David, I think I've done a good job for the most part since I've been here. And that's when they were taking issue with each other's version of the words in that, if you will. And it was really much to do about nothing, in my opinion. But it is a big deal in the fact that it became a public matter, and now people are starting to speculate. And the question of suspension, or what comes next after suspension if it's not accepted, will he fight it, all these type of things, conjure up memories of things that went on in the past that, frankly, I don't think hold a whole lot of relevance in this particular case. And I'll say one more thing, that, you know, when Jim Calhoun went off recently, or other coaches have gone off, it was a short story, and that was the end of it. But anytime it's Bob Knight, it is the lead story, because Bob Knight sells, and that's why we're having this. And, you know, frankly, guys, we never really heard much of Miles Brand until he took on Bob Knight. And I tend to think, just personally, that because it was a personal matter between the two, that there might be some of that in there, that we hadn't heard much about David Smith, but you take on Bob Knight and you're a national figure.
Jay, if he's going to be the chancellor there, I mean, it leads me to wonder this question. Do you think that Bob Knight will be the coach at Texas Tech at the end of this basketball season?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any question about that. You know, I heard people talking about will he resign. There's no question he's going to be the coach. He loves this university and loves the team.
Very quickly, are you surprised by this reversal when it was reported all day that he was going out? Are you surprised?
No, because earlier in the day I told you guys that I hadn't heard that anything was official yet, and it had been handed down.
Okay.
It was just talk about it, and it was being floated and decided upon. It hadn't been decided.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, guys.
Jay Bilas, boys and girls, we're taking a break. When we come back, is Drew Henson the next Peyton Manning or the next Ryan Leaf?
I can't stay out of the news for long. Doesn't stay
But
out very
once
long.
Knight's in it, it always spirals.
Jay's right about that. You're right.
Time for toss-up, where I go Van Helsing on Wilbon's rear end.
Yeah.
Let's get the first one from the producer over the loudspeaker.
Toss-up, more likely to get back to the Super Bowl next year, the Patriots or the Panthers?
Patriots, they're in a harder conference, but they have 7 picks in the top 60 in the draft.
And they draft well.
They can take them or they can trade some of them to fill in the gaps if people go free agency.
Yep.
They have a great coaching staff. They got a real team. Patriots.
Carolina has such a tough division. They could be good for a long time. They got a lot of young players. But they got Tampa Bay, which we both expect to rebound to some degree. They got the Falcons with Vic, and you've got to think Vic's going to be healthy for a full season. And they got the Saints, who are at least competitive.
Do you think next year they'd be able to go on the road at St. Louis, at Philly, and win those 2 in a row on the road? I'm not sure. The Patriots right now, they have won the Super Bowl 2 of the last 3 years. I'm not going to use the word dynasty, but they're good.
We've also seen Super Bowl teams win or lose and then miss the playoffs and then come back.
It happened to them.
It'd be difficult. It happened
to them last year.
Absolutely.
Next.
Drew Henson is going to the NFL. Is he the next Peyton Manning or the next Ryan Leaf?
If I have to pick one or the other, I'm going to go with Peyton Manning, though I don't think he's going to be that good. When he was at Michigan, do you know who his backup was?
Brady.
It was Tom Brady.
Yep.
So how good do you think Henson is? And Brady says that Henson can be great in this league. I think he can do it.
Joe Torre, who's a pretty good talent evaluator, maybe even a little better talent evaluator than Tom Brady, said that that Drew was going to be a great baseball player.
Didn't work out.
Potentially a superstar.
Didn't work out.
So these evaluations, I don't know what happens when you look down the line and project.
There are people who lay out of something for a while. Roger Staubach had a 5-year military commitment and was one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Danny Ainge played baseball, then came back to basketball and was on championship teams.
4 years later, was it? I don't think it was like a year and a half.
I think it was 3 or 4 years. What's next?
Toss up, more suspendable offense, criticizing the refs or missing a flight.
No brainer.
It's missing the flight.
That's right.
What you're saying to your teammates is, I don't care about you as much as I care about seeing the Super Bowl. If that's what reported is true, that he was at the Super Bowl, Steve Francis?
I'm a big fan of Stevie Franchise and the way he plays, but you cannot do this. He's been struggling. I saw him in person Wednesday night against Sacramento, almost get shut out. He didn't play well in the very next game against the Nets. He's not been playing well. And even if you are playing well, you cannot miss a team flight to watch a football game.
Now, in Shaq's case, I believe that criticizing the refs would have gotten him a fine. I think the reason he was suspended is because he cursed on a live mic, and when they told him this is live TV, he cursed again. And I think he's being slapped for that.
We hear bigger, harsher criticisms of the refs all the time, but not on live television. That's why he's getting
the wrong way to go. What's next?
Toss up, more likely to stay undefeated, Stanford or St. Joe's?
It's St. Joe's. After they beat Villanova last night at Villanova, the only hard games they have left are the Rhode Island games in their conference. Jameer Nelson, Delonte West, I believe, are the best backcourt in the entire nation. It's St. Joe's.
Got to be St. Joe's because it can't be Stanford.
You're agreeing with me on everything.
Can't be Stanford. Here's the deal. At Cal, at USC, at UCLA in a row after playing Arizona at home. Stanford finishes with 5 of its final 7 games on the road.
Do you have any conscience? You're agreeing with me on everything.
Now, you have no conscience.
Can they go undefeated and win it all? Can they be the last one since Indiana?
No, not happening. Not going to happen. Your boy Bob Knight, his record with teams staying intact.
Why?
It's too hard for too many good teams. No, not going to happen.
What's next?
Last one, toss up, more likely to be president, Tom Brady or Joe Lieberman?
There is just no Joe-mentum for Lieberman anymore. He's a very pleasant guy. He's got to get out of the race. The thing that works against Brady, and it's more possible Brady will be president, what works against him is that, A, he's 26 years old. You have to be at least 35
9 years
to serve
out of the mix.
president.
But what about
9 years from now, you won't.
What about 20 years from now?
Well, here's the problem.
Brady retires a winner, the Golden Boy, the Knights Club.
That's right. There are a lot of great athletes who served in Congress or become governors or serve in the Senate. How many of them have become president?
At the moment,
Zero. Bill Bradley didn't make it.
No.
Okay, Jack Kemp didn't make it.
Some guys have been Division I athletes and gone on, but
not stars like this. Not pro athlete stars or something like that. This is unfair. By the way, you agree with me on everything. On the strength of my last answer, I win. Time for a break. Don't go anywhere because we still got to talk about another comeback for Grant Hill, the Dolphins looking at a new quarterback, and a happy trails for Bill Murray.
I think it's a tie. It's a tie and toss-up.
Well, there are no ties. There's a shootout.
Let's go there. Let's get it on.
There are no ties.
Pardon the interruption. Presented by Guinness Draft Stout. Drink responsibly. Brilliant. And in part by Outback Steakhouse. No rules, just right.
Happy time, people. Happy 64th birthday to Fran Tarkenton. Fran the Scram, the original mobile quarterback. 3rd all-time rushing quarterback in NFL history. 4th all-time passing. Maybe Michael Vick will put up those kinds of numbers, but he's sure got a long way to go.
Eddie LeBaron didn't run around.
He ran around. He wasn't he didn't pass like
Your
this guy.
old Otto Graham, did he run?
What, do you think I covered Otto Graham in high school? What,
I figured you were already out riding by then.
Happy anniversary, XFL. On this day 3 years ago, you made your debut on NBC. It had a great rating the first night and disintegrated after that. The only thing left in the XFL is He Hate Me, who you wrote about, Wilbon, at the Super Bowl.
Not the only thing left, a certain starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but He Hate Me is the lasting legacy because it's a great nickname. I know you don't like it, it's a great nickname.
Happy trails, Bill Murray. You've withdrawn from this week's Pebble Beach Pro-Am because you're making a movie in Italy that's gone over schedule. How can you miss Pebble Beach after you went out of your way to get Sofia Coppola to put in that vanity shot in Lost in Translation where you tee off against the backdrop of Mount Fuji?
He can miss it because he's working so he can maintain his fame. You remember working.
Did you see Lost in Translation?
Yes.
It is a great movie.
The last 20 minutes,
time to find out what we messed up, Stat.
Tommy Maddox also a leftover from the XFL. He was the MVP there. The upscale salad bar tone actually in a supermarket, just to clear that one
How
out.
upscale can it be?
I don't know, 3 years for Danny Ainge in the majors before the Celtics. And, oh, yeah, Brady and Henson split time. Brady actually the starter. Henson only 8 career starts. Brady was a backup to Greasy at one point.
All right, enough about those Michigan.
Here we go to the big finish. Straight through it. Grant Hill has begun light workouts with the Magic. Your thoughts?
I hope he makes it this time, stays healthy enough to play and be the old Grant Hill. The Dolphins are going after Mark Brunell. Good idea?
The old Mark Brunell, who could run around, not the injured Mark Brunell, no. Larry Bird's team plays Isaiah's team tonight. Who you got?
Oh, Bird's team. I think Bird's team, Indiana and Minneapolis, best teams in the league. The NCAA may reconsider freshman basketball eligibility. Good idea?
It was a good idea then, not now, because if you take away freshman eligibility, these guys are all going to the pros. Nobody's going to college anymore.
I agree with that.
7 primaries tonight. Will the Botox boy wrap it up tonight?
Are you the Botox boy? No, nobody's wrapping up anything tonight. The long race.
You don't even know what a Botox boy is. We're out of time. We'll try to be better the next time. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow.
Live TV, nothing like it.